Good morning. Good morning and welcome to Fountain Street Church. My name is Reverend Christopher Rowe, and for a little bit longer in this season, I serve as this community senior minister alongside a wonderful host of staff and volunteers and ministry partners who make this legacy ministry possible. In behalf of everybody who calls this their spiritual home, let me welcome you this morning to Fountain Street Church. It is good to be with you. It is also good to introduce you to somebody you probably already know or at least recognize, the Reverend Dan Plasman. Dan is Reverend Jody Batten's wife, who was our interim consulting minister, and Dan is also somebody that I've known for 15-some years now. It felt fitting to open the service playing piano. Dan and his wife Jody hired me at East Congregational Church all the way back in 2009, and so we've had a long relationship together, and I'm so grateful you are with us this morning. I'm also so grateful to be with each and every one of you who endeavored through the construction, who made it through the closed streets and the uncertain parking arrangements. It is good to be with you all as we prepare ourselves for this morning's time with one another. I invite you to hear these words of our call to community, simply called to worship, by Jacob Trapp. Hear these words and let them bring your spirit into our time with one another. To worship is to stand in awe under a heaven of stars, before a flower, a leaf in the sunlight, or a grain of sand. To worship is to be silent, receptive, before a tree astir with the wind or the passing shadow of a cloud. To worship is to work with dedication and with skill. It is to pause from work and listen to the strain and the string of music. To worship is to sing with the singing beauty of our earth. It is to listen through a storm to the still small voice that lives within. Worship is a loneliness seeking communion. It is a thirsty land crying out for rain. Worship is kindred with fire within our own hearts. It moves through deeds of kindness and through acts of our love. Worship is the mystery within us reaching out to the mystery beyond us. It is an inarticulate silence that is yearning to speak. It is the window of the moment open to the sky of the eternal. It is good to be with you. Welcome, friends, to worship. Friends, you are invited to turn to one another, greet each other with the peace of love, welcome one another into this space of love. You'll be called back with our gathering hymn this morning.
It's been a good ride. I just saw you and I was like, oh, it's been a long time.
An ancient reading from the book of Proverbs, 24th chapter. A house is built by wisdom and is established by understanding. By knowledge, its rooms are filled with precious and beautiful things. I invite you to join me now in a responsive reading. You may have detected a theme already with house. Titled This House by Kenneth Patton. This house is for the ingathering of nature and human nature. It is a house of friendship, a haven in trouble, an open room for the encouragement of our struggle. It is a house of freedom, guarding the dignity and worth of every person. It offers a platform for free voice, for declaring both in time of security and danger the full, undivided conflict of opinion. It is a house of truth-seeking, where scientists can encourage devotion to their quest, where mystics can abide in a community of searchers. It is a house of art, adoring its celebrations with melodies and handiworks. It is a house of prophecy, outrunning times past and times present in visions of growth and progress. This house is a cradle for our dreams, the workshop of our common endeavor. I want to say publicly thank you to Reverend Christopher. One I truly admire and most importantly call a very dear friend. I wrote a letter to my mom and dad. They died about a dozen years ago. I just wrote it this morning. Dear Mom and Dad, today I preach at Fountain Street Church in Grand Rapids. You wouldn't believe the fuss. Workers built observation scaffolding to monitor the crowds. Traffic had to be rerouted. Parking is nearly impossible. I bet you never dreamed that my presence here would create so much commotion. Your beloved son. Hey, I'm in a quandary. Please, no applause. No. I'm in a quandary. I could introduce myself as a mainline Protestant minister who for 30 plus years served 4 churches in New York, Illinois, and Michigan. And during that time, I rehabbed 6 houses. That's one way to introduce myself. Or I could introduce myself as one who in 30 plus years rehabbed 6 old houses in New York, Illinois, and Michigan, and during that time served as a mainline Protestant minister of 4 churches. I guess I'm admitting publicly I'm a dual personality, a split personality. Am I a minister who did old housing rehab, or am I, in essence, an old house rehabber who also did some ministry? I am so incredibly grateful for my spouse, Reverend Jody Benton, your former interim consulting minister. She is not only a skilled pastor, but a great listener, and I get all my counseling for free. It's great. Well, I am here to tell you everything worth knowing I learned by rehabbing old houses, including our current and probably our last abode on the 700 block of Paris Avenue Southeast in the city of Grand Rapids. I want to start out by admitting what really piqued my interest within the last month about this topic was reading Isabel Wilkerson's book, Caste, Origins of Our Discontent. Caste is about the history of our country and the hierarchy of a ranking system, as she calls it, a caste system set in stone based on race. And one quote in particular sort of marinated within my soul. Wilkerson writes, "America is an old house. We can never declare the work over. Wind, flood, drought, human upheavals batter a structure that is already fighting whatever flaws were left unattended in the original foundation. When you live in an old house, you may not want to go into the basement after a storm to see what the rains have wrought. Choose not to look, however, at your own peril. The owner of an old house knows whatever you are ignoring will never go away. Whatever is lurking will fester, whether you choose to look or not. Ignorance. Ignorance is no protection from the consequences of inaction. Pretty powerful quote, won't you say? And as I thought about that phrase, America is an old house, I obviously realized I have some experience with old houses and rehabbing them. So I came up with an idea a few weeks ago of preaching on that topic, and I mulled on it, I mused on it, and I came up with 27 unforgettable lessons. Fortunately for you, I've reduced them to 4. Lesson number 1. Listen very carefully. It may be the most important. When you work on an old house, you're bound to get hurt. Some of you are nodding. It's inevitable. You can try to guard against it, but you can't always prevent it. You're going to get hurt. You can wear work gloves. You can wear padded work gloves, and still the hammer can smash your thumb. You can bend down to grab the toolbox and tear cartilage in your left knee. Muscle spasm suddenly plagues your back. You can do something 237 times without incident, and it's the 238th time that lands you looking for the medicine cabinet, or worse, in the emergency room. When you work on an old house, you're bound to get hurt. And yet, old houses aren't unique, are they? Being in relationship with people is pretty much the same thing. No one gets married with the intention of getting hurt or of hurting the other. But relationships, as all of you know, are not immune from emotional hammer blows and torn hearts and painful shocks to the system, yours or the others. If you're going to fully live this one and only life, you're going to get hurt. Some wounds get better. Some wounds never heal. Some leave nasty scars, visible or not. Once I was cutting linoleum for a kitchen floor, a fresh blade in the razor knife. Yeah, I cut through my index fingernail all the way up to the second knuckle, 2.5 inches. You should have heard what I said. 18 stitches. 30 years later, it's still stiff when I bend it. You get hurt. To be human is to be vulnerable. The one you love dies. And you might not recover. Sometimes you get hurt. Maybe it's your own fault. Maybe it's someone else's fault. Maybe it's nobody's fault. There's no immunity. There's no inoculation against it. Sometimes wounds heal. Other times they don't. If you are alive, your wounds will certainly find you and maybe stay with you. And dealing honestly with those wounds, those hurts, the ones inflicted upon us and the ones we inflict upon others, is really what it means to be a human being, or as I like to think of it, a human doing. And the only time you're not going to get hurt is when an urn contains your ashes, or your body lies 6 feet under a grassy piece of real estate. So lesson number 1, When you rehab an old house, you're going to get hurt. Lesson number 2. When it comes to rehabbing old houses, real progress can only begin when you make a conscious decision to rent a dumpster. To rent a dumpster. There is no elegant, eloquent, sophisticated way of saying dumpster. You rent a dumpster. The larger, the better. If you're rehabbing really an entire house, a 10-yard dumpster is not going to work. It's too small. 15 is better. 20 might be better still. A 30, now you're talking business. 30-yard dumpster. You see, when rehabbing an old house, you need a dumpster to throw out all the stuff that no longer works. It's run its course. It's no longer useful. You throw into a dumpster anything that you have to. Old sinks, moldy toilets, grimy kitchen cabinets, smelly carpet, 5 layers of wallpaper that go back to World War I. Get serious. You throw stuff out. You rent a dumpster. You can't reuse somebody's 40-year-old mattress. Can you? No, you can't. Progress doesn't end with a dumpster, but it certainly cannot begin without one. That's because house cleaning, and I'll make the analogy, house cleaning like church cleansing is beneficial to the soul. It's good for the mind. It's absolutely necessary in order to move forward. Every church that I've been associated with, 4 of them as a senior pastor and several others as an interim minister, needed to rent a dumpster. Sometimes literally, but oftentimes, always actually, figuratively. Some churches did, and some churches simply refused. You see, dumpsters are great receptacles for programs that no longer work. Dumpsters are great receptacles for mindsets that can't get beyond the glory days when the sanctuary, the auditorium, the chapel, there wasn't a vacant seat or an empty pew to be found. You know how people long for those days. We've never done it that way before. That's not how we do things around here. We've got a reputation to uphold. We need a leader just like Dr. So-and-so. We need someone to remind us of Reverend you-know-who. For God's sake, throw it out. Trash it. There's a reason why the past is called the past. Dumpsters cleanse the soul and all those agendas that aren't worth keeping around anymore. We need to deal with the past without clinging to the past. It's true for religious organizations, churches, synagogues, mosques. It's true for businesses, nonprofits, every organization. Dumpsters are invaluable for persons and institutions that hope to move forward. I saw a dumpster just cutting through the hallway here in the back. Very good. It's full, by the way. Lesson number 3. Regarding old houses, beware, and I've given this a term, beware of the nasty trinity in old houses. The nasty trinity in old houses: asbestos in the basement, lead paint on the woodwork, and old frayed electrical wiring in the walls. The nasty trinity of old house rehabbing. Ignore the things that can kill you at your own peril. Now, over the course of 30-some years, I've tried to make some connections with rehabbing old houses and church organizations, or nonprofit organizations at least. And I've made up what I call a nasty Trinity list for churches in this case, or nonprofit organizations especially. And the nasty Trinity list includes 3 types of people. 1, people who insist on my way or the highway and threaten to leave if the vote doesn't go their way. And by the way, I make no assumptions that any of these people are here today. 2, people whose first response to a new idea, a proposed plan, a fresh vision laid out, is to rattle off all the reasons why it won't work. They make the nasty Trinity list. And the third member of the nasty Trinity list are people who undermine an open process by engaging in clandestine conversations with the intent of stirring up trouble. Nasty Trinity list. Some people, there's no other way to say it, some people are discussion killers and idea murderers and emotional arsonists who intentionally, or maybe unintentionally, sabotage relationships. It's good to know. Number 4, lesson number 4. The enduring value of woodlath. I don't know if I can ask for a show of hands. Are there people here who don't know what woodlath is? Yeah, I'm seeing a few hands, okay. If you live in a house built, say, between 1880 and 1940, more than likely your interior walls are not made with what we call drywall or sheetrock today. They were created by mixing a wet solution of plaster and mortar mixed with horsehair, of all things. And then the craftsperson, the builder, would take a trowel and apply that mixture to the wall, to that woodlath. That's, you know, I can tell you're not following me here. This is a woodlath. These are 2x4 studs, 16 inches off center. These are horizontal pieces called woodlath. And the woodlath is about 3/8 of an inch thick. There's a slight opening, a gap between each horizontal piece. So the craftsperson, the builder, would take this sloppy, wet plaster mortar mix that included horsehair, and he'd take the trowel and he'd press it as hard as he could, leaving a layer of maybe 1/4 of an inch or 3/8 of an inch, and the rest of it would seep through the cracks between the horizontal pieces of woodlath. And what that would do is that on the back side of the woodlath, the plaster mix would drip and form a tight bond, not only to the back, but creating a tight bond to the front. You realize, this is the most interesting thing I'm going to say this morning. Woodlath walls, plaster walls, last for centuries. It's because of the woodlath. And it all happens behind the scenes, the woodlath. You never see it. You don't go into a person's house and say, my, that is some beautiful woodlath. Healthy communities, civic, spiritual, otherwise, know the value, and I'll make the point, they know the value of woodlath people. Woodlath people are not fist pounders. They're not finger pointers. They're not screamers. They don't shout the loudest when they don't get their way. They're the heart and soul and the backbone of every institution, every business, every church, every synagogue, every mosque. It's Woodlath people. And every church, every business, every community that seeks to do good needs and relies on Woodlath people. People who, without fanfare, without fuss, without thumping their chest, without calling attention to themselves, quietly, dependably hold things together. Woodlath people seldom make demands. Woodlath people toot no horns. Woodlath people never threaten to leave if they don't get their way. Woodlath people are what I call holy saints, whose presence often goes unheralded and unnoticed. Fountain Street Church, you are blessed with an abundance of Woodlath people. You are. That's your strength. Quiet, caring, compassionate, committed repairers of this broken world. In Hebrew, it's called tikkun olam. Tikkun olam, repairers of the world. Our fractured planet, our troubled nation, which I believe is only going to get worse. Even this city on the rapids is in want, in need of your rehab skills, in need of grounded, thoughtful communities like yours committed to justice and fairness and inclusion and activism and radical welcome. So I say just keep it going. Times of transition are times when most organizations experience their greatest growth in ideas, in dreams, and people who want to be a part of them. So keep it going. Keep it going. And through it all, just remember, hammers are meant to pound nails, not fingers. Thank you. Thank you. It's time to invite you to give. In some churches that I served, the tradition was for deacons, as we called them, to offer plates and then march forward at an acceptable, majestic song and place the plates at the foot of the cross. I admire and am fond of the way you look at your resources. And I'm convinced more gatherings of people interested in expanding their faith and their impact on the world should do what you do, which is, in the offering, 50% goes to the work of this church inward, and 50% goes to social action, social justice programs outward. I applaud you for that commitment, and at this time, the offering will be received.
So in case you didn't notice, there is some scaffolding and some construction stuff lying around. We have begun the physical and, of course, the tactical part of the work we've been hearing about for a few years now, the Second Century Campaign. And as part of that work, we need to formally recognize, honor, celebrate, and commission the folks who are behind this endeavor. And so at this time, I'd like to invite up to the front any of our Second Century Campaign folks. I see you out there. We have Tim Chester, I see you out there. Come on up. And Heather Palmer, Todd Fettig. Who else is out there? Come on up if you're part of our committee. Wynn Irwin is also a co-chair alongside Tim Chester, Marty Arnold, Bob Chapala. Friends, these are some of the faces. Oh, here's Steve DiPolo, hiding behind the balcony. These are the faces of the folks who have endeavored upon raising $800,000 on behalf of our congregation to help support this work. For the next 6 months to a year, you will be seeing this construction ongoing as an effort to restore, repair, and prepare our tower for the next century in our community. It is a big undertaking, and it is a necessary one, and so we are grateful for their work. Before I go on, will you please join me in thanking them immensely for their work? You likely received in the mail this week a packet, and that has information about the campaign itself. There includes information about what work is being done, how you can support it, and folks and places that you can get more information on this project. I encourage you to discern what is an appropriate way for you and your household to support this work. As well, I encourage you to reach out to any of these folks or from anyone from our governing board if you have further questions about this project, its necessity, and of course, how you can continue to support it. I'd also like to welcome up to the row our chair of our governing board, Spalding Wall. In this season of liminality and as a transition, Spalding is going to also be part of the ground force of communications. You saw his first piece in the Beat this past week. It is going to be paramount that you listen to him and to our board and to this committee. They are going to have a lot of information coming out and towards your way, and you'll want to know it. I'll talk about more of that in a minute, but please get familiar with these folks, thank them immensely, and find out ways that you can support them. With all of that in mind, I invite you to all take a breath. In our own Fountain Street way, we will have a commissioning prayer together. Will you please take a breath with me, close your eyes, or prepare yourselves as we bless the work and bless this project. Spirit that time nor space can contain, Spirit of the centuries, including the next one that we are on the dawn of in this building that is our ministerial home. We ask you to bless the work, not only physically on this 100-year-old tower, but also the work of this committee and this congregation. Give them the patience, the strength, the grace, and the resolve to work on this project in the name of our entire congregation and community, and give this congregation and this community the openness, the strength, the resolve, and the commitment to support this project in any way that is fitting and sustainable for them. Bless the hands that will restore the masonry. Bless the workers and the engineers and the contractors that will guide us through this season of growth and renewal. And bless this community as we look ahead to our next 100 years together as a beacon of hope, inclusion, acceptance, and belonging. Thank you for this committee. Thank you for the workers, and thank you for this community. May their work be so. Amen. Thank you. One of the beautiful aspects to having wood-last people, such as they are, is that it also reminds us that we are the church, but the church is the people. We are made up of hundreds of folks who are dedicated and determined to continue this ministry into its future. And so the Second Century Campaign is one of those groups that remind us that no matter who is in this pulpit or who is on your staff, you are still the church is still the church, and we are in this together. And so I am grateful for their dedication in all of that. Another such group of Woodlath people is, of course, the 2024 Summer Series Planning Committee. That is Carol Koistra, that is Heather Palmer. I have also been on that. Natalie Beversluis has helped with that. It is a group of people who are dedicated and determined to seeing a rich and vibrant summer together in our chapel. You may have noticed, some of you had in your program this morning, a flyer. And this flyer just gives us the information of who is speaking this summer and when that begins, which is June 9th in the chapel. And it runs through September, Labor Day weekend. We are so grateful for the undertaking. This is a huge task for the committee, and so we thank them for that. Additionally, you will find out on the table extra flyers, as well as a program with bios about each of the speakers. If that's something you're interested in, I encourage you to take one of those today. If you would like to see it electronically, we will be sharing it in the Beat this next Friday. And so please prepare yourselves for what will be a wonderful summer together in the 2024 Summer Series, and help me again thanking the planning committee for bringing this to be. Thank you so much, committee. You may have noticed that it is getting more and more complicated to get down here. We are constantly rolling with the city road closures, our own sidewalk and road closures, and eventually the parking lot closure. We do not have a specific date on the parking lot closure, and so Spalding has reminded me that we will be communicating that with you as it's available. It may be 2 or 3 weeks from now, but the best place and the most succinct place to get that information is every week in your Beat. We will make sure that information is accurate and up to date on how you can get down here and where you can go once you do. I also want to lift up that the parking garage across the street, the lower level, will close down tomorrow. And so in addition to the parking lot eventually closing, the parking garage is going to take some extra logistics. I would say give it a little bit, it's like a fire drill or any kind of drill you practice. Come down some evening in the summer and just figure out what your best route is to get down here. That was a weird metaphor. I don't think that worked, but please give yourself some ample time to get here, and always know that you are welcome no matter what time you arrive after 11. So that is that. And then finally, I just want to lift up that it's Cale Clement's birthday today. Yeah, so let's applaud him. He's tucked away in there. We are so grateful for Cale, and I'm just so honored to work with him, and so we thank him, and we also wish him a happy birthday. Speaking of thank yous, will you also help me in thanking Reverend Dan Plasman once again? Can we also thank Austin and the choir? Thank you. And of course, all of the tech staff, our volunteers like Dick Wood and the ushers and the greeters and the coffee hour hosts, all of this is Woodlath people who are you. And so I thank you all for being a part of this ministry and keeping it going forward. To lead us out in a blessing, I've invited Dan to offer us our parting words.
Like a good house, give welcome to all. Like a good house, be a safe place for others. Like a good house, offer protection from life's hazards. And like a good house, may others experience in you a place they call home.